Welcome to the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper. This particular video is about looking at this past year in a glance and reviewing, this expansion of the channel. We've had almost around 40 videos so far in just the short time that the channel has, been here. So we are really rocking and rolling and bringing on some incredible guests here onto the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. And it's just my pleasure to find, all different types of guests from different backgrounds and different viewpoints. And really the goal, of this channel is to find something to hold on to, something to allow us to propel us as we're going through, these times. I firmly believe information is everything in our lives and it informs our behaviors and our outlooks. And so this channel is all about creating and bringing forward, helpful information during these times so that we have a new perspective, we have a new outlook. And, little did I know when I started this channel, there was obviously a war occurring on in the Ukraine, but now, things, around the globe have really escalated and the tensions are rather high. And so it's of paramount importance, this particular channel that we're doing, it just allows people to generate the hope past a lot of the pain and the darkness, and I think right now we're going through a lot of ascension. And when we have accelerated light, we know that brings up a lot of darkness, just as we understand in our own life. When we have periods of darkness, we've seen people who've gone through darkness, they're able to transcend, to transform that and be the phoenix out of the ashes. So when there's great light, there's also this great polarity. And I think that's what's happening right now as the vibrations on the planet are intensifying. The shadow and the muck is coming up to the surface. And so I think it's important for us to really hunker down into our own foundation of light during this time. But it's been a true journey and honor to start this channel. And some of the guests that we've really brought on have changed my perspective, and I'm hopeful to yours. So, it's very important to try to grow this community because right now the world is dependent on the light that we have, to really propel ourselves. So keep on continuing to assist in the channel's growth. Any shares, spreading of the good word, comments, likes, all help us to reach as many souls as we can, as that is the goal of the channel. And so as we enter, into the, new year, 2024, which is, my birthday, April 24th, my year. We really, and I use this with my clients. It's a time of year of reflection on what this year has meant to us. I know as we're going into the holidays, a lot of my clients and myself, we have mixed feelings where we may have had, some sadness, grief, loss, but we also have had good experience. And so it's important to allow ourselves to meet our own selves where we're at and being able to generate the hope and the faith past some of the pain that we may be experiencing. And that's what the holidays are about, this time of year, whether that's Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, it's the darkness, it's the winter time here, over here in New York, and it's just finding that bit of light or love or joy, within those times. And it's kind of like Albert Camus, if you're familiar with his quote, he said, within the dead of this winter, I found with me in a summer. And I think we all have the ability to understand that circumstances don't need to define us, that we have the ability, that our lives are largely predicated on our definition of circumstances. So there's certainly a lot of circumstances happening, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of tension, a lot of hatred. And so we have to decide, where do we want to place our energy at? Where do we want to focus on? What do we want to declare? Because I firmly believe that our own microcosm, who we are, impacts the macrocosm, the larger scheme of things, which for many is, a thought that's way out there. We feel, and I know many of my clients, and sometimes we all go through this where we feel things are just so difficult. What's the point of my difference that I make to the world when everyone, people's heads are getting blown off and there's so much tension and fight? What do I do? And so there's a saying that we want to think globally by acting locally. And so each person has a divine spark, a light, whatever you want to call it, within themselves. And so the brighter each spark that is, the more that we connect to it, the more impact that we have on our world. And if each person were to remember who they are, connect to that spark, this world would be such a different place. And eventually there would be no wars, there would be no fights, because our light would be so bright that there would be no room for darkness. And as we're approaching, the new year, we have MLK, Day coming up, Martin Luther King Day. And I have a couple quotes that I prepared for this, kind of like end of the year synopsis symposium of our channel. But again, it's a theme, it's an intention of this particular year, where we're going in, and I know there's a lot of fatigue and exhaustion that we have, particularly this year. But it's important, again, to have helpful information, and that will help us to really allow ourselves to propel ourselves forward. As we know, information, heavily influences our outlooks, our worldview, and how we relate to our world. In fact, it is everything. So the quote by Martin Luther King, is, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So think about that for a moment, that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only the light can do that. And hatred cannot drive out hate. Only our love can do that. And so when we read these fancy quotes, they're not just thoughts out there that we just look at and regurgitate. They're aspects that we could apply in our everyday lives. And MLK, I consider him a tremendous luminary who was very deeply connected to a much higher place than the average person, and his words are still innovative, and they are applicable, to this time especially. So with so much tension, so much anger, so much hatred, divisiveness that's been plaguing the world, not only this year, but the last couple years particularly, I think we have to decide to declare, where do we want to focus on? Because where our attention goes, our energy goes. And, Albert Einstein, one of the smartest men of all time, as brilliant as he was, he also said, I cannot ever really understand it all. And so sometimes the more we know, the more we recognize we don't know. But he also said that our ability to solve our problems can't come from the same place that our problems originated. So in other words, for us to really find a way through this, we have to come from a different place. And so, a lot of people feel deflated because they have made changes and they see so much changes, and yet there's so much barbarism and medieval behaviors that are still going on. And so again, that muck is coming up to the surface, I think, for a lot of us to declare, this is not who we are. All this hatred and violence and arguments, is not really who we are. And so we could define ourselves with the light, or we could lack awareness and continue to have the darkness of the world overcome us. In other words, we want to allow our minds to create our worlds and not allow the worlds to create, our mind. So within this year, it's very important to find ways to stay connected, to be empowered to that divine spark, and to really decide if we want to cast that light around us and just kind of play with it. Ram Dass would say, within every moment in life, there are children, unfortunately, being born into this world and they don't make it, and children being born into this world who live happy lives. In other words, there are, life's a dance of external tragedies and triumphs, and it's always a mixed bag. And so where do we want to focus our energy on? Where do we want to pay attention to? And it's not to ignore the tragedy, it's to work through it. Much like, within my own mental health work, within my clients, we don't want to ignore the pain or even the trauma or the suffering. We want to recognize the wound, go to it and clear it out. And so it's not to bypass what is, but the way out is through. And so right now, individually, collective, micro and macro, the way out of this is through, but we want to be careful as to what channel and foundation we're looking at things, where we are vibrating from, what we're connected to, so that we could really see higher levels past what's going on and remind ourselves of what is real, what lasts, and what is finite. And being a near-death experiencer myself, I and thousands of other near-death experiencers could tell you that at the end of the day, darkness does not last, and we are the ultimate survivors of that. The ultimate darkness that people think, or the ultimate ending, is death. And love transcends death. Love transcends hate. Love transcends divisions. So all this we have to bear in mind is a part of our temporary experience, as eternal, infinite beings here. And we have to remind ourselves who we really are. When we remember and when we know who we really are, again, our behaviors will be different. So again, if we know that we're a soul, we'll know that our job here is to really be our brothers and sisters keeper, to unify, and we will know what's real. If we really define ourselves as a human being, then we forget their soul, this world becomes soulless, and what's the point? And it becomes godless. So we want to really understand where we're coming from, where we're connected to. And I think it's important also to allow ourselves to be human. I myself am not perfect. I'll be the first one to admit that, because that's what makes me a human being, and no one's immunized from human. And so all of our imperfections are part of this journey, and they allow us to go, into greater heights. Our darkness, if we recognize it and work through it, we could accelerate our own light, and it could be transformative. As you've seen, with figures of time, anyone who's made a difference in this world, they weren't immunized from pain or suffering. In fact, they probably had it more so than the next person, but they were able to transcend. And so what I think it's important is to play with where we are coming from. We could see ourselves on a very human level, seeing everything that's going on. We could be very reactive to it, and that's one way, or we could really decide to pivot. Do we want to react to things, or do we want to take a step back and respond to things? And to be able to get into a place of response, and again, this is a layered area, but I think you have to come from a place of clarity, equanimity, stability, in a place of high vibration. And so for us to, again, generate the hope past the pain, to be able to step back from situations, we really have to let go of attachment to everything that's going on, and we have to connect to our foundation. And so the winds are very strong right now. There's no question about it. And they can knock you on your you-know-what if you're not connected. And so right now it's important to really hunker down into, things that really allow you to increase your vibrations. Everyone has a different engine. For some, that could be, going to a dance class, doing synchronized swimming, listening to music, and really activating the vagus nerve within the brain. And so we all have our different coping skills. And certainly if you want to reach out to myself, to have a session to really process some of your skills, we could certainly do that. But, everyone has different coping skills. And I found within my own personal life, if I'm checking off the boxes of my coping skills, if I'm eating right, if I'm going to the gym, doing my meditation, my yoga, I find, listening to music as well, certain kinds of music, I find that I am an entirely different person, and everything starts from that connection. And I'm able to see things in such a different way, and I'm able to react to people with more tolerance, more acceptance, more room. And so we have to really find ways to empty that cup so we have room for life to come into it, and we have creative capacity. When it's overflown within our own stuff and our own emotions, our own anger, our own frustration, that's going to be the goggles and the lens that we see the world. And so that's going to be our experience. So, we all have the capacity to have emotional freedom, which doesn't mean the immunization from external pain or suffering. But emotional freedom means the coexistence of pain and suffering with our ability to generate a different focus, a different outlook towards what's happening. It's develop a space between the stimuli and our response, as Viktor Frankl said. So I want to leave you with one last quote that I had from Rumi. And I think with a lot of people who might feel deflated right now and just out of sorts, I think, again, some of the luminaries on the planet, I think they knew what they were doing, and they, may have intentionally, unintentionally, connected to a time, what they were going through. But again, cycles repeat themselves. And, when we don't learn on a micro and macro level about our behaviors, we tend to repeat ourselves. And again, what we're going through is nothing new. War is, fortunately, a part of our story. But hopefully, again, through this ascension and through each person being responsible for their own behaviors, their own pace of peace, as I call it, their own connection, when each person takes that, the microcosm affects the macrocosm, and we're able to think on a global level of change, and by acting locally. So thinking globally, acting locally. So the quote by Rumi, again, is, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I wanted to change myself." And again, no pun intended, the wisdom Jacob's ladder, it's all really comes down to the wisdom that we have in our life and understanding what we can't control. And when each person takes responsibility for their own connection of life, their own freedom, we will have a ripple effect instead of having all of muck taking over our minds. We understand what's real and the spark within, that light within. We acknowledge the darkness on the outside, and we're able to cast that beautiful light by being responsible of our own energy, our own connection, and really remembering who we are and our spark that we have. So with that note, I want to wish each and every one of you a wonderful upcoming new year, and it's going to be exciting with some of the guests that I have, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of these, as it's important, I feel, to mix and match, and anything that I have to share, I'm going to try to get it out a little bit more frequently. That's my personal intentions, but I do need your help. So if you can, please continue to help with the algorithm to grow this light, to grow this channel. Share, the videos that speak to you, spread the good word, comment. We want to really get on that, YouTube algorithm. So again, we could help out as many souls as we can. That's really what it's all about. That's what my channel is all about. So, we will have milestones and goals to really expand this channel on a globally, but it starts locally with each and every one of you. So I thank you for opening up your minds and hearts this past year, and I hope some of the guests, were helpful. We've had a wonderful lineup, of guests, and I feel blessed to really have some of these powerful connections, and just buckle up, because we have, more and more coming your way each and every week. And, we're just trying to do everything we can here on our end, again, to reach as many hearts and minds as we can. Now more than ever, that's needed. So love you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful, rest of your year. And I wish you all a year of health, prosperity, joy, abundance, mindfulness in 2024, and understand that in any year we have the capacity to really change. And so it's important to think, we don't want to live 99, 1 year 99 times, or whatever your goals are, but we want to live 99 or 100 or 118 different years. So this year is going to be a unique year, just as others years. We have the ability to continue to ascend our ladder of awareness, growth, and evolution. And so we have a lot of resistance going on. We have a lot of stuff, but that allows us to have elasticity of our soul to continually expand, to connect to a deeper reservoir of beauty. And so certainly I am living proof of that darkness does not last, and there's this deeper force within ourselves that transcends this life. We have to connect to that, not when we're just, crossed over, but we connect to that light within this world. And that is really how we become the embodiments of heaven on earth. So we don't have to wait for heaven. We could declare it right here and now with our deepened connection to our sparks. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. From my heart to yours, I wish you all a wonderful upcoming year. God bless. Thank you.